Welcome back to Hit the X Reloads with Dean. We are now on Reloading Series Class 4, New Brass Prep. Now that we have all our brass prepped, we are going to measure primers, seat primers, powder load, and seat bullets to a long length. I will also include a short video of filling in the information we now have on the fired and new 6mm brass prep spreadsheet. Then we are going to go to the range and fire all 200 of them. Then we just wait for the Reloading Series fired brass prep. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. All right, my friends, the first thing we're going to start with is measuring 10 of our primers out of a batch I got poured out here. All right, we're going to use the same Primo-Rights digital drop gauge. Okay, I've got that hooked up. And I'm using the average calculator in the spreadsheet, fired and new brass prep. And I'll show you how this is done. So you want to take a primer with the feet facing up and the cup facing down. So I'll lift the bottom of this, I'll drop the primer in there, take my block and put it on top, and it rises up and it gives me a reading of 0.1210. So I'm going to enter that in here, 0.1210. Okay, that's one. All right, we take another one, put it in there. Take our block, put it on top. We've got 1199.1199. Don't take this off too fast because your primer will spring around somewhere and you'll never find it. One more to give us 10. Point 1223, 0.1223. Okay, so there we have it. Now, this calculator automatically figures out your average, your shortest, and your longest. Write those numbers down. Now we gotta figure our primer seating depth. From the last video, we went over the primer pocket depth. Uniforming the primer pocket depth. Okay, so we need that number, and that number was 0.1225. Okay, now our shortest primer height from this video, we came up with 0.1186. Now this calculator will do it all for us also. So this measurement here is this subtracted from this. So this gives us 3 9/10 thousandths. Now with that measurement, we would just be touching the base of the primer pocket. Just touching it. Well, the anvil on the primer has got 3 contact points, and they're just not sitting at the same point or whatever. So one might be touching, 2 might be not, 2 might be touching, 1 might be not. We don't know. It's always been my practice to add another 2 thousandths to that to make sure. Adding another 2 thousandths gives us 5 9/10. So we're just going to make this 0.006. Now this is all my measurements, of course, what I've been doing here. Whatever you've been doing, if you're following along, these measurements will probably be different. But this is how you come up with it. Make note of this, pause the video, make note of this. This tells you how to do it. So there we go. That'll do that. All right, now we are to the loading step. So I've got my gauge here. We got the phone there to show you. Now, I'm only showing you this because I don't really care what these are. I mean, I do, but I don't, because these are just fire foreman brass, but I want to make sure everything is working correctly. Five three. And of course, I'm not going to make you watch me load all 200 of these. 5-0. This series is about doing 200 rounds, which isn't my normal amount. 5-3. But we got 200 rounds. We got a fire for 'em. And this is new brass, so it's a lot of work. 5-0. So you get the gist. One more. Five oh. So one thing I have to pay attention to sometimes, if I take this and I do one and I get a weird seating, there is actually even a minute piece of dust, because we're talking about 10 thousandths of an inch here. Little piece of dust gets in there or something, or on the bottom of your primer. Sometimes it's not a bad thing to take it and wipe it on your shirt, clean this off. Now that one I had a hard time fitting the pin in here, because this is just factory brass yet. They were not sized or neck sized or anything. When we get the fired brass, things will be so much better. Five one. So that's how it works. I'm going to get on doing the rest of these. Okay, now we're going to get to powder throwing. Let me move this camera around to show you what I'm using here. Let me back up. I built a little tram system for it overhead. These trays are the best trays I can think of for powder loading. You can, let me take this out of there. Okay, there's like a middle layer that you can open them and then you can lock them down. These are made by EP Integrations, loading blocks. They're on my website too, under the equipment stuff. Then over here, I just use a plain old RCBS powder thrower. Number 2, I think it is. I don't know. It's on my website too, under equipment. Now, I have used 2, 3, maybe 4 different powder throwers. I haven't spent a ton of money on the auto trickler, and it was okay, but it has to work with these AMD scales or AND scales. They only go to 2/100ths of a grain. 2/100ths of a grain, it could be 2.99, or it could be 3.0038 or something before it gets to 4. That's just not close enough for me. I mean, it works pretty good. I went back to this here, regular powder throw, and I've never ever been happier. In the back of my scale, this is let me show you one at a time. So this is a Dandy powder trickler. Do you remember the old kinds where you would turn them with your hand to try to get 1 grain to fall out and 2 or 3 would fall out or whatever? Well, not with this, because you can adjust it how fast they come out. Another great purchase, and I don't know, it's not expensive. Then this is my scale. This is a Sartorius scale that they don't make anymore. But as you see, this goes down to 1/1000th of a grain. Okay? In combination of this and that Dandy trickler, I can get either at 28 or just a little under. I never go over. I make that a rule of thumb. Never go over. A little under is okay, but I never go over. It's a thing of picking up how to do it, but let's start now, and I'll show you. All right. So I need a cup. I put it underneath. Put a charge in. All right, that's 27.580. Bump it up a little more. Now the next kernel in there could be really big. I'm going to find a real little one in here just to show you how I do this. I'm going to drop that in there. And that brings us up to 27.985 grains. You can't beat this. I'm so glad I switched over to this, because your powder charge can make a hell of a difference. Like everything. Right now I'm just trying to do all this stuff for you guys and show you how I do it. But after we get done with this fire forming, I am very critical, especially for my match ammo. All right, 27,730. 27,940. 27.99, and I can't go any higher. That is 5/1000ths of a grain shy. You can't get any closer than that. It all depends. These grains, as we all know, are not equal in weight. They can range from 1.8 to 2.6 grains. Okay, so it all depends on the size of the grain that falls. So now we settled at 27.99. I can't be happier than that. That's fine. You'll be here, if you want to get closer, you'd be here with a razor blade cutting your grains down. One more. One more. Oh, and also be careful. There's nothing on your scale. Sometimes a grain will pop out of that Dandy tickler or something. All right, 27,662. Oop, no, I went over there. I'm 4/100ths of a grain. But I know that that's 2 kernels, pretty much. So I'll take 2 out instead of pouring it back in and starting over. Oh, gee, look at that. I'm at 28 exactly. 28 exactly. So, my friends, that's how that works. Next part will be seating bullets. In this step, we're going to be seating bullets. And what I use here is this Annealing Made Perfect amp press. This press is for more than that because it has an amp that will show you what's going on so you can learn to better improve your bullets, and I will explain that coming up. What this does is, let me show you. First of all, let me pull up, as you can see this file over here now. This is a curve of your bullet pressures as it's seating and the difference between them. This is a fairly good one. This is nice, actually. That's what it's supposed to look like. Okay? But now we're going to start a new session. Now, after figuring out what my lands were, okay, and my lands were at 1.715, as I wrote down, and this is my dummy bullet now for barrel 7, 1715. Now I want to take off 10 thousandths. I want to keep them long for fire forming, to get as much pressure in there without going into any danger zone, and I've only got 28 grains of Hodgdon Varget loaded. What you can do with this now is I'm going to set this down. By the way, this is the Short Action Customs Infinity APS seating die. This is made for this type of ram press. You can have the hand kind or this kind. I'm going to lower it about 8 thousandths now, just to see where we come out with. You can use the die setup. So let's see where we're at now. 1708. Okay, and I want it to be at 1705. So let's go down 2 more and see where we're at. Okay, we're at 17045, which is perfect. All right, now that we have this set for the right depth, we're going to start rolling these off now. So I'll take this, and there's also a ring on here where you can set that to 0 now, okay? And I put this white tape around here just so I can keep track of where it's last set at. So I'll put it at 1.705. That's how I know where it's set at now. Saves you time going through it all. Let's get some bullets. And now we're going to use the go command, because this will start graphing. This was just to set up the die. That is a very ugly thing. Now the reason this is going to be bad is because this has never been sized. These necks have never been sized. They've never been trimmed. They've never been anything. This is just fire forming brass now. Look at the difference between those two now. I'll zoom in on this in a little bit to show you better. And I'm also, what is nice about this is you can set this up to go auto run, and we're good to go now. And this is how it works. You just keep on going. I'm going to do a few of these to show you how I see them with this system. Alright, let's keep going here now. Alright, we're all over the place on this graph. Now that first one I showed you is because it was sized. The necks were expanded to what we calculated out. They were brushed. They were lubed. These are not lubed either. I'm not going to waste lube on just for fire forming bullets. Okay, so now let's take a closer look. So that's where our graph is at now, and you can see the differences in here. This should all be close together, and then as it comes up, it's going to separate. But this is really terrible. And if we look at our diagram over here, we can sort by the terminal force. We go all the way from 73 to 104. That is just not good. So now let's open that other one that I opened. Now, you see how nice they are. This comes across, and because in this here, if this is really tight, this means you got your brass trimmed really good to the same length, because they're all, boom, going up at the same time. Then they go up, they come down, they go up, and they go over. Now, if I was shooting in a match, I would pull these bottom two. The rest of these are great, but this helps you. When you work on your brass, you can follow this diagram when you're doing it and see what's improving, what's not. That's why this press is so helpful. Because when you're doing them by hand, boom, you don't know nothing. You have no idea what is happening. This shows you what's happening. This is the final episode of Reloading New Brass. I would like to personally thank you all for joining me for this first series. It was very hard to make and took massive amounts of time and efforts to make these videos. See, this is all new territory for me. This is my first YouTube venture ever, first time ever using Final Cut Pro to edit and produce these videos, and I am still learning. Hopefully I will continue to refine my editing skills. Feel free to comment with any advice. I hope it was helpful and you all learned something from it. Now we all have to get to the range and fire these off. My first competition is April 19th, so I've got to get these tuned up. Thank you again, and I hope to see you in my future videos. Please subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications, and leave a like. Goodbye and good luck.